I think we're recording. So hi, my name's Kevin Bennett. We're group 2. In our group, we have Motza Hernandez, Kristen Dennis, and Terry Yuma. We're
Terry
talking.
Bond.
What?
Terry Bond. Terry Yuma
Bond.
is my email.
Oh my goodness.
Hi.
Anyway, so we're talking about trash, garbage, generally, waste, and it's a global problem, and we want to try to help contribute to a solution.
Okay, so the first question states, what is the problem?
What is the problem?
Too much. We are consuming way too much trash.
This is true. Yeah, and it's kind of a world problem, right? As the population grows, it gets worse and worse.
Right.
So, anybody else have something to say about that?
No, just mainly that it's just a buildup of trash and how we're accumulating it over time, and it just has detrimental effects on our planet. But
All right.
So number 2 is, what is the question of policy?
Well, the question I have is, can individuals do more to help with waste management? I kind of pointed out in my initial arguments that, companies and governments and whatnot have already done quite a bit to try to get the ball rolling. But the problem seems to be with individuals from my research.
Right. I agree that it definitely, that's the root of the problem is individuals and attitudes. And it starts with just one person making a change, changing the way that they live or the way that they select things. That's what I agree that's the root of it. It's going to actually try to genuinely work towards fixing it.
I definitely agree with that. Now that you guys brought up those points, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the one other thing that I noticed was just landfill-wise, but that's something that I can discuss later.
Well, I think that is the problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
The landfill. Trying to avoid filling up the landfills and that sort of thing, right?
Which can lead us into number 3. What is the nature of the problem?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's global trash is the problem, and the way households contribute to that load, and the fact that people don't know how to recycle and things like that. Stuff just ends up in the wrong place, and the half-life of plastics and whatnot. It makes the whole situation sort of snowball on itself.
Right. Buying too much, buying way too much, buying too many. Buying way too many is a huge problem because it has to go somewhere. Being conscious of that.
Mm-hmm. And what I got on my research was it started ever since, we started living on this planet because people, throughout their lifetime, they accumulate trash. So it's just growing, and that's about it. So it started ever since the beginning.
Right.
Alrighty. So number 4, whom does it affect? And I feel like generally it's just everybody.
Yeah.
It's just, I think, well, even aside from that, I guess our environment, if we want to span out that far, and then just.
No, that's exactly what I have. Everybody,
right. It's a cycle.
Everything, it's the planet, right?
Right. It's like a cycle of people, the environment, the animals, trees, all of this, which in turn affects all of us, human beings.
Yeah, it really affects everything.
Right. The water, rivers, ocean, and we swim in them, animals swim in them, and then it's just a cause and effect. It's just a terrible chain reaction that causes disease right?
Yeah. Especially I like what you said with water, because there's a lot of water contamination.
Right.
So that's a major problem that can come back to us.
Right.
Diseases.
Immediately.
Mm-hmm.
That's the fastest, one of the fastest ways.
Did anybody else want to add to that?
No, I think you've hit all the major points.
All right. So number 5, how serious is the problem?
So I've got, several statistics that were pretty amazing. The fact that Americans waste almost 40% of the food that they buy is a pretty incredible thing. I mean, that's that contributes to that. And a lot of that stuff, food, it turns into like methane gases, and it's just really bad as far as global warming goes.
Mm-hmm.
And it contributes to like the shutdown of landfills. Like I had several references that talked about how landfills were just closed. They've hit their capacity. There's a leaching effect where stuff starts to seep into the water table and whatnot. And so it's serious. And then on a global scale, just again, we're a relatively small population, and yet we contribute the most to solid waste. So big problem.
Yeah, I think along your lines, I wasn't even sure about this, or I didn't even know about this, but about how we discarded trash like transnational, I think it was the word that they used. So I thought it was really interesting how there's this like stuff that I found that I think somewhere, I forgot where in the world, they were bringing their trash over to like the East Coast, and that was making them reach their capacity. And just like you even said, like just the fact that they're like reached over capacity to landfill, I think that's just crazy in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The problem is huge, especially here in the United States. I think it's incredibly serious, and if something is not done, it's gonna affect our lives and disease. And I think that it's a huge problem that should be taken more serious and addressed more by individuals, because like Kevin, you mentioned, companies and corporations they've already tried, and they've given us the ideas, the means, and if any difference it's going to make, it's up to each person, or the problem is going to get bigger than it already is.
Yeah.
Yeah, anybody else wants to add anything?
Close the nut cookie.
So the next question is, what are the causes of the problem?
Well, I think we just kind of touched on them. It's the
Go
one,
wake up,
the one thing
Nadia.
I found is that it really did start with the individual, right? If people are buying, wasting 40% of what they buy, and in a lot of it's awareness. One of the pieces of research I did was I actually had a chart that I developed myself. It was a population against the amount of waste that we're putting in the landfills. And kind of interesting, right around the time that disposable bags in the single-use disposable bags in grocery stores, whereas outlet, there was a massive reduction in the amount of disposed waste. And I don't know if that's a causal effect, but I just think that the awareness, right? It all of a sudden it's affecting everybody, and I think that people start operating a little bit more responsible, and it kind of helps drive individuals to be part of the solution, whether they're aware of it or not. I just think that they are aware, right? They may not know that they're doing it, but now they're being kind of forced to do something, and it probably affects other behaviors because they're aware that these things, it's affecting their lives now.
Okay.
Right.
Like one thing I want to add to yours too is I liked how you brought up the back thing. What I found was that packaging is also something that also contributes a lot to it. I had a quote that said more than 30% of municipal solid waste is packaging, and 40% of that waste is plastic. So it's like, thinking about what we buy, like buying in bulk instead of just, buying individually wrapped things, and how that all just ends up in the landfill. And there's just so much, and we just have to think about what we're getting. And, again, it goes back to individual and like what you're doing and what you're buying. And,
Right.
you have to think about the planet.
And buying things that you can refill, and taking your bags to the store, and taking, when you go buy coffee, buying a reusable cup that you can use, because all of those tiny things make a huge difference in the problem, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, I think just the one last thing, because I found a lot of that too, but the one thing that I found interesting that I feel like isn't really brought up is tourism, and just like how we do, like how we bring up trash, like, when we're visiting other areas, like they might not have the same like recycling or stuff like us, so we kind of throw that out the window and what we know, and we just kind of like give into the problem instead of like helping it.
It almost feels like, right, like it's not ours since we're somewhere else, but it's a world problem,
Exactly.
like we mentioned earlier. And you're visiting Greece or something, and they don't have the technology and all of these ideas, perhaps, depending on where you are, right?
Exactly.
And so we just throw it and don't think twice. So yeah, like that's a problem too, as far as an individual making a difference, and where the problem starts with each of us, and how you think, and a mindset. That's what's going to really work towards fixing it, is like a mindset.
Mm-hmm.
If everybody can get to that mindset, which is hard. It is hard because you're busy, and you just, you got to go. And
We're kind of rolling into the next part of it, right? About the,
Yeah.
the
Yeah, I
solution.
was going to say. So if we want to just continue, what solutions have been attempted before?
the bags that Kevin, you mentioned, the bags is a big thing in California, right? They don't have bags anymore. You have to, and if they kind of penalize you if you don't bring your own bag by charging you 10 cents a bag. I think it's effective for me. I don't know about you guys, but that's a huge step. I don't think I would have did that on my own every single time, but now since they've enforced it, I'm definitely more conscious of it, right? That's helped me. Things like that are great ways to make each individual take responsibility.
One solution that I found was how they incinerate the trash to try to reduce the volume. But the bad thing with that is that it leaves chemicals in the air. So obviously that's not the best solution. So that's why we need to think of something better. But they've tried burning it, and it gets rid of it, but then at least still leaves some remnants because you have, the ashes. But it hurts the ozone. It can help contribute to global warming. So that's not the best solution.
Yeah, I think even just recycling as a whole, that's something that's really big that was brought up. And like I had mentioned earlier, import or export of waste. So those are things that are being done still.
Yeah, I mean, I had recycling as well, but most of what I was seeing, if you continually look up waste management and whatnot, everything is focused on, the landfills and different ways of getting rid of it, trying to make sure that the landfills are in better places, not near water sources and that sort of thing. It's not really going to the source of the problem, right?
Mm-hmm. And I'll say one more thing, just because I kind of already said the bag thing, which we had mentioned already. Donating and having garage sales, that's another solution, right? Instead of throwing it away, making another use for it. If you need something, trading furniture or clothes. I mean, I don't know how practical that is, but I mean, in a small way, that would help. Just throwing stuff out, or a huge piece of furniture, even doing that a little bit by each person, definitely, I think would add up to a big, somewhat of a solution, towards a solution.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So I'll go ahead on to the next question.
Okay.
What will happen if the problem isn't solved? So that's now becoming something bigger, not only affecting sea life or like, you know, mammals and whatnot, but also it's starting to float to like other areas of like other countries and whatnot. So it's just, it's kind of interesting that it's even like our trash can end up on the other side of the world. So
Right.
it's kind of,
We're going to end up really sick. We're going to end up sicker and sicker. Right. With less of an opportunity to fix it. The worse it gets, the more no one does anything. More disease, spread.
Exactly.
Can't swim in certain places more and more, things like that.
Earth will just be like overrun by trash, and then all of that will just be, you know, emitting like toxins into the air, going to, like you said, into the oceans. It's just going to make a mess and make it really hard for us to like survive and live without constantly dealing with it.
I think you could probably sum it up by saying that, you know, we limit our freedoms, we limit our options.
Right.
You know, our choices become fewer because, you know, we haven't been good stewards of our environment.
I agree. Okay, so then I believe the last one is, what are the constraints for a workable solution?
Well,
I mean, when I answered this question, I focused on the individual side, right? It's you know, there's obviously things that governments can regulate, but it's very difficult to regulate individuals. You know, they have to go to sort of funnel points of grocery stores and manufacturers for different packaging and fast food to limit the styrofoam and things like that. But from an individual standpoint, you know, it's a lot of it has to do with awareness and just making people, you know, aware of their footprint, their carbon footprint, their solid waste footprint, and we can be part of that solution as individuals if we help try to organize things and try to encourage better effort from just our friends and family and coworkers. You know, even though the companies might have the resources in place for recycling and whatnot, you know, you can still kind of keep an eye on it and just be a good role model, right?
Yeah.
right.
It's something that I found, there was a lot of talk of like pricing that like the city or the county does, and I felt like that was a really big restriction because there was a lot of talk about how they're charging. So either like for example, like how much weight the recyclable is, or like paying per household, which is I think preferred by companies, which is something that I had no idea about, but it does make sense. It's the business aspect to it, you know, and it's like, you don't want to waste too much money, but you're trying to get rid of a problem, but it's at the same time still creating.
That's what I was going to say, making it cheaper for people, the cities, the states, government, making it easier, making it cheaper to recycle and find ways to recycle. And if you made it easier and cheaper, I think that people would definitely, of course, do it more.
That's a point that I had too about the, sorry, Kevin.
No, go ahead.
Oh, that's a point I had too about like the cost, because like make it either little or like no cost, because I mean, with the economy that we're in now, and like, yeah, it's our problem, but who's really thinking about like, oh, I have to help the planet every day. So no one's going to want to put so much money and effort into something. So it has to be like, you know, easy and cheap or free for like someone to really like, you know, get involved. Yeah, not all people are like that, but most people.
Right.
I found a quote that just kind of sums that up. This study in New York back in 2006. The result basically said people must know how to recycle, be motivated to recycle, and recycling must be convenient, not costly, and have few or no barriers.
I like that.
Perfect.
Sums it up.
Yeah. True. If it's difficult, half the people won't do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the other thing, you know, you're talking about financial incentives. You know, one of the things I found is that you know, when you put financial constraints or volume constraints, it doesn't necessarily cause people. I mean, it might help with them limiting their waste, but the other thing that you find is dumping. I mean, I don't know if you've ever gone to some area and you know somebody just dropped their mattress on a corner, or something like that. And it's like, oh my God, what's happening there? Well, they're trying to avoid a cost. They don't want to take it to the dump because it'll cost them to get rid of it.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so true.
Yeah.
You know, that makes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was saying that totally makes sense. I would have not thought of that.
Yeah, we're thinking that they're incentives, but sometimes they're deterrents to people actually doing. So that gets back to that quote, right? It's got to be the fewer the barriers. You know, if you get people participating in the solution at a funnel point, then you can kind of control what's happening or try to do a better job with it. Whereas if you put barriers, people will innovate and they'll come up with their own solutions.
Right.
Yeah.
I had a friend once. He was getting ready to move, and he's said, "I got all these chemicals. I think I'm just going to dig a hole in my backyard and dump it in the hole." And I'm like, "Dude, don't do that. That's you're leaving a big chemical waste problem for the next person." He's like, "Well, that's not my problem." I'm like, "Well,
it is your problem.
It is if they find it and you get sued or something." So he ended up getting rid of the stuff, right?
Yeah.
I think that leads us into finding solutions or what can be done. I know we wanted to focus in Santa Clara County, but any suggestions as to what?
And then I'll be writing them down also.
Well, I know he mentioned the whole beach cleanup, like cleanups, like park cleanups, all of that stuff. Of course, like off the bat, that's like something like simple, I guess, that can be done. Right? Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's a good one. But for me, I was thinking like that. I mean, how often would you, go to a cleanup? I try to think of things that you can do often, because I feel like the more you do something, the more it's going to contribute instead of like a one-time thing. I mean, obviously it's a good thing, but thinking of long-term, something that can be done often, I feel like would be good.
Sure. So I've got my 6 things here. I'll just run through them real quick. We've already touched on a lot of these.
Yeah.
We buy less, so we waste less. I mean, that's something you can evaluate every time you go to the store, or every time you clean out your refrigerator. Go, man, I shouldn't buy so much of this. Think globally and act locally. You always have to. We have to know that we're affecting the footprint of humanity on this world, and that helps drive us into like getting involved. I suggested that if you really want to organize people and you want to create awareness, you can organize an activity. We've got Facebook and different social media where we can organize something and say, hey, I'm going to this place. If you want to join me and hang out for an hour and pick up some trash, I'm bringing some bags or something. See if you can get some friends involved and organize something. And if you can get that rolling, maybe some other people will organize. You can get involved in their thing too. From a activist point of view, you can contact your local municipality if you got some good idea on some program. And then like when you are picking up stuff, maybe you want to do a win-win and pick up cans and that sort of thing, and find some way of getting it to a homeless shelter or something like that, so that you're helping people who might need that money, as well as helping with the environment.
I really like that suggestion. I feel like, a lot of people do recycle, but I guess when they go get the money, I think that's a really good idea. Or even like, I don't know, I like that better than saying like, oh, like donating to something that's helping, Yeah,
I feel like they're hitting like 2 causes. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say exactly 2 causes in one.
Good job, Kevin.
Anybody else have anything? What other solutions did you guys have?
Well, I mean, I had, like participate in like volunteer events, just, focus on recycling, getting that out, knowing, and then I had like, do not use do not buy the one-use items. So like, informing people like, hey, don't buy like plastic water bottles, like buy a reusable one, or like instead of paper napkins, think cloth napkins, or like don't buy paper plates because that's a total waste. Like just trying to get them aware of like use things that aren't like a one use, something that you can keep and just like keep on refilling or reusing, that type of thing. I think I had one more. Oh, and it's like the same thing. So it's like the reusable bags, containers. Like when you have a lunch, don't put it in plastic baggies, kind of, you know, use reusable packaging things, stuff like that.
I
But
like
then
going
again,
to farmers markets. You go to farmers markets and you don't have a whole bunch of packaging.
oh, that's so, yeah. Yeah.
I have also supporting companies that are really into recycling, that all their products are already recycled, and not buying like teeny tiny containers, buying like a big one.
Yeah.
I think
that was a different one I had.
I think something else, like just even more simple, is just awareness. I know we all talked about it earlier, but just simply like making people aware, because there's a lot of stuff that like we all knew, but there's a lot that we didn't know either. And I feel like that says a lot about how we're just focused on how trash is affecting our area. But it, like, you know, Kevin was reiterating, it's a world problem. So it's like, you know, I feel like the solution is definitely something difficult, because as soon as you start fixing one area, like somewhere else is obviously going to become that a little bit worse. So it's just,
Yeah.
So if we were to pick like, you know, 1, 2, 3 items out of all the stuff we're talking about, you know, this gets down to some consensus. You know, what type of things would you want to do? I plan on going to a farmer's market right after this meeting, by the way.
Ooh, fun.
I happen to have one within walking distance of my house on every Saturday. So
Nice.
I would
Yeah,
suggest maybe you look
I
up.
go every Saturday as well.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, part of what we need to do is just collect some evidence, you know, take a video next time we go to the farmer's market and make a little commentary about, you know, how there's less packaging involved in what you're buying.
And I mean, it does so much more good too, because you're supporting like local farmers, you know where your food's coming from. Just like that solution, you know, like again, it's hitting more than just one stone. Like, because you're just, you know, like you said, there's not really a lot of packaging because it's right there, and you know it's fresh, and that I would have never thought of that. Like
It doesn't get trucked in from across the country either.
Exactly, you know where it's coming from.
yeah. I also like the idea that you had said about like a cleanup and then donating that money. I think that's something that I would really like to do. Just a heads up, there's less than 8 minutes. But yeah, I think that's something that's very doable. And, you know, like Kristen was saying, something that can be done like more than once. I feel like that can definitely be done more than once. And it's something simple, you know, and it's even like you're walking down the street, you're walking, you know, and you see something, you can definitely pick it up. And that's like, you're contributing to it.
Oh. And a heads up, we've accumulated the minutes that are required.
Yeah, I think we're at 25 minutes.
Yeah, definitely we are.
So we'll organize something, and
Oh, yes.
like I said, if you can get to a couple farmers markets in the next couple of weeks, like just collect a little evidence on it, and that'll help with your final paper. You know, if you feel really inspired, write something to your local municipality about maybe some initiative you have, right?
Right.
I think that covers about 3 things. That satisfies me. How about you guys?
Yes, I think that's a great idea.
I'm going to go ahead and throw in flea market there with the farmer's market thing. That's usually where my family is. Kind of like the same, but there's more stuff, you know.
Flea markets have like everything.
Yeah.
Right? Go there first before you go to like a big old mall or something.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. And I think somebody mentioned donating. So like if you have something to donate.
Yeah, trading, furniture, I don't know.
Do a little video of that too. I did recall the instructors suggesting we collect video evidence. So that's why I keep bringing that up.
Oh, we're frozen.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, that's a good idea. You're right. Yeah.
Okay.
Alrighty.
All right.
Okay.
So this is group 2. This is our discussion on our solution to try to reduce waste, or at least reduce the amount of disposable waste that goes in the landfill. Appreciate you guys all listening. This is Kevin Bennett, Melissa Hernandez, Kristen Dennis, and Terry
Bond.
Bond.
Bond. Yes.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.